Good afternoon, Vandal fans, and welcome to another edition of Fourth and Downtown. I'm your host, Josh Grissom, and I'm joined with Luis the Godfather Torres on this sunny afternoon. We got some tennis to talk about, as well as an upcoming trip for the Idaho track and field team, and then we'll discuss the upcoming scrimmage tomorrow by the Idaho Vandal football team in the Kibbe Dome. But first, obviously, Luis, let's hit the big news of the day. The Vandal tennis team earned another commanding victory against a Big Sky opponent, against the reigning Big Sky champions, actually, a 6-1 victory, and earned another win in conference play to improve to 7-2, which is 2 league matches left to play. Fantastic performances in recent weeks, so to say, I'd say, by the team.
Oh, it's definitely a big win for the tennis team the last couple of weeks, not just for the women's, but also the men's. They have really hitting their stride down the stretch. That's what's going to help them if they're going to go back into the tournament and win the championship and then build all that momentum going into the NCAA tournament, which for the women's, we're talking about, that is their goal. They have all they have the players, they have everything well put together right now, and defeating Montana is always a big deal down here.
Yes, and Mariana Petri, the freshman on the number 1 court, that's been her slot all year, just continued her amazing performance. I believe she's 15-2, 16-2 in singles play right now after a 6-2, 6-0 victory over Frances Dean. Absolutely incredible. I'd have to say she's in the running for Big Sky Player of the Year for women's tennis, don't you think?
I would put her up there as well, because the way she has performed all year long, seems like every week we usually see her at the Athletes of the Week for the Vandal Nation side every single week, and that's for good reason. The performances like that is why. And I think with Petrie going down the stretch, that is really huge for the team. And then I would not be surprised if she continues to deliver and into the tournament, let alone in the future, because she is a young player right now. And these young players, I know this has been the theme all year long, once again in making the big news. Considering right now there's only 2 seniors of Belen Barcinella and Rita Bermudez, Petrie will definitely be one of them that will carry the torch to the Vandal women's tennis team in the future.
Yes, and the fact that the Vandal women's tennis team is the reigning Big Sky champions is, the future is bright now, but just looks bright down the stretch in the next couple of years with some young talent. They're only going to lose two players. That's Rita Bermudez, an Arizona native, and then Belen Barcinella, who I believe is a Spanish native, and just a fantastic core group of players, especially young. I believe, looking at the scorecard, the only point for the Grizz came with the defeat of Bermudez, 7-5, 6-3 on the number 2 court. That was Lydia Dukic who came away with the victory. In doubles competition, the Vandals took 2 of the matches. The third match went unfinished, but it was actually very close. Dukic and Cam Kincaid of Montana were tied with Rita Bermudez and Maria Tavares 6-6. But on the number 1 court in doubles play, Anna Batiri and Belen Barcinella came away with a 7-5 victory. And then on the number 3 court, Mariana Petri and Lucia Badillos came away with a 6-2 victory. As a result of the win, Idaho improves to 13-8 overall, 7-2 in Big Sky Conference play. Montana drops to 3-12 overall and 2-3 in Big Sky Conference play. So
that is surprising that they didn't finish. I would imagine if it got unfinished, my assumption is that probably that the doubles points was already won by Idaho at that point. I decided it might as well not to kind of get it done and over with, because I felt like they assumed that Idaho were going to be difficult to beat, but with Bermudez losing that one singles match, that is a surprise outcome when you think about the big picture. Usually Bermudez can have like her moments in the sun, and then sometimes it may be close and it just escapes with a tough loss. But at the end of the day, as far as the team's concerned, they have it. They just have it at this point, and the team chemistry on and off the court is very apparent. That's always nice to see when you play athletic sports in a collegiate level.
And looking at the standings right now, Northern Arizona holds the top spot in the Big Sky standings with an 8-1 conference record, 15-7 overall. Sacramento State is currently second. They just haven't played as many games as the other competitors. It looks like they have a 5-1 conference record, 9-8 record overall. Idaho sits third with a 7-2 record, but they've already clinched a Big Sky tournament bid along with the Lumberjacks of Northern Arizona. So Idaho will be traveling for the Big Sky Tournament for women's tennis. That will be held, I believe, Luis, in Sacramento.
It's around in the California area, so it's about Sacramento, and that's coming up.
Was it the 28th or 29th? I will double check this real quick, but I believe that
Definitely
was initially
late 20s.
Okay. We are pulling up the women's tennis schedule right now. The Big Sky Tournament, yes, 29th through May 1st in Sacramento, California. So the Idaho women's team already punched their ticket. Meanwhile, if we look at the men's tennis standings, they didn't play this afternoon, but they did play earlier this week. They played, I believe it was Wednesday afternoon. Am I correct, Luis?
It would have to be, yes, Wednesday against Eastern Washington.
Yes, they came away with an absolutely crushing victory over the Eagles, swept them 7-0, and I believe, if I remember correctly, the Eagles didn't win a single set. Idaho won 15 straight sets against Eastern Washington, which, that not only did we blow them out, that was an obliteration, so to say.
Oh, the momentum is just right there. They've had that comfort feeling that they're finally home after playing all over the western region of the United States and at Lewiston, that they're performing this phenomenally at their own court, that it makes them feel comfortable, and that win against Portland State really carried the tone after those difficult, demanding losses against very challenging teams like BYU, Utah State. Now demoralizing Eastern Washington, and they still got a couple more home games down the stretch, and even a couple more non-conference matchups. I think there's no stopping it right now. They are hitting the stride, and I think Coach Abid Akbar, what he's doing is really phenomenal in his first season as the head coach for the Idaho tennis teams, and that is always nice to hear.
Yeah, and I remember when we talked about them a little bit in the fall, they looked at times shaky, the men's tennis team we're talking about, that they were almost looking for that type of guidance and leadership when they didn't have a head coach, and I feel like he's really provided some stability and confidence to this team.
Yeah, he has, even when they're kind of facing tough plays or they're down and out, he's right there to kind of get them focused on the game, a little bit of advice to kind of change a little bit of their playing style, and that was definitely apparent when I interviewed Felipe Fonseca last Saturday when he had a tough challenge as far as one of the players from Portland State, Ethan Lopez, that he had a different style of play, and Felipe kind of wants that fast style rather than a slow pace, and kind of put him on the side, and kind of what Abid told him that they kind of focus on the game and kind of relax, and it definitely helped him in the third set because he would manage to get the point and the victory for Idaho to boost their momentum, and also this goes back with Akbar's background. He's been a vet. He understands the program. He's been heavily involved with it over the years, and now getting the helm as the head coach has really been a huge impact. It has a good vibe, and they kind of are very focused and hungry to get back to the NCAA tournament.
And looking at the men's tennis standings right now, Weber State holds the top spot with an undefeated 6-0 conference record. Weber State is 8-6 overall, just 2-6 outside of the conference. Idaho, meanwhile, is 7-2. They're in second with 13-5 overall record. Sacramento State is also in a tie for second with a 7-2 record and a 9-13 record overall, which I believe translates to a 2-11 record outside of the conference. So Idaho looks like the most stable team, especially against non-conference opponents. Northern Arizona is also in the mix for the top spot with a 6-3 conference record and a 10-10 overall record. Obviously, looking at things right now, it appears until Idaho plays Weber State might just hold on to that number one spot for a little bit. But the Vandals in a very good position to maybe earn the second seed in the tournament and maybe even steal the number one seed at the end of the year, so to say.
Yeah, and that's in the absolute right time. It seems like sometimes when you need a very a roadblock in your way, that's where the team really are tested to see how well are they, and the fact that they're doing not too shabby in non-conferences, and just playing those teams that have been ranked all year long within the top 50, top 60, that it's really helped them to go out there and be competitive. They want to, it's they are hungry. That's been their thing all year long, getting back to the tournament, not just the Big Sky tournament, which they're most likely they will make it with these. But the NCAA tournament make a statement after losing to USC last year in the first round.
Right. And the men will also, I believe, take part in that same tournament in Sacramento, right? They're going to host both the men's and the women's at the same location, I believe.
It will not surprise me when you look at it. I think it makes sense that they host both men's and women's in the same location. Look at basketball, for example.
Right. Okay. And yes, it is also going to be in Sacramento as well during the same time period, April 29th to May 1st. So if you're a tennis fan, definitely head down there. Starting to be some good weather and some competitive tennis, so to say. But right now, let's turn our attention to the Idaho track and field team. They will be traveling to Spokane, specifically to Spokane Falls Community College for the WAR 9 on Saturday. WAR stands for the Washington Against the Region, and 9 means it's the 9th annual meet. It's going to be consisting of both junior colleges, community colleges, and NCAA opponents. Luis, I know obviously Kinsey Gomez and Ben Aisuata have looked like the two shining stars for the track and field program this year so far.
They have certainly been the case. In fact, the last time we were here, we were not aware at the time that they were traveling in different places. Some of them went to Montana, some of them were in California, where on Friday night was a huge day for the Idaho track and field team, where Kinsey Gomez broke a 20-plus year record. Not just broke it, but shattered the 10K record time of slightly over 23 minutes. And that is a huge deal because it kind of shows you that her momentum and the amount of practice that she and Coach Travis Floeck have had has really benefited Gomez, and that is like huge news. That not just breaking a school record is always a huge deal, not just in college, but in any form of school level that you want to break a record, especially when you have almost well over 20 years, or maybe 30 years for that matter, and shattered. It kind of shows you what kind of an impact Gomez has had this season, and she is definitely hitting her stride after coming here on campus where his father was an alumni after being in their opening years at Oregon State. And as far as Benny Iso that it's just being Ben. He's just slowly but surely keep having strong and consistent runs that will help him in the outdoors. And it's just those two have been the focal point of this season. But not just those two, but there's also a couple performers out there like Drew Thompson, Jesse Valines, Cole C. Bates, to name a few, that have really been phenomenal throughout the season, indoors and outdoors.
Yes, and looking at a few of the Vandals who have already qualified for conference, we have Ben Aisuata. During the Stanford trip, he had a time of 47.59 seconds in the 400 meters to qualify as the second best time in that event in the Big Sky this year. Johnny Maggie and Faith Arua have both qualified for the triple jump competitions, and Derek Haas has qualified in the javelin throw. So we've already got quite a few Vandals who have earned qualifying conference marks, and now we just wait to see if we have any more over the weekend who are able to kind of secure a spot in the Big Sky tournament later. But yeah, just a really strong performance, I think, this year by the track and field team. Obviously, it's a little bit of an individualistic sport, but it's also kind of a team sport as well with the training and everything that goes on. We've seen some great performances by some Vandals, but overall, I'd say it's a solid year for the program.
Oh, it's been a solid year. The way they were able to perform and have different runners at different regions of the country, from California to Montana, and still pull off successes. I would imagine that they can just go anywhere and be competitive and go and make an impact, and that was definitely the case. And I would imagine going for the WAR 9 tomorrow, it will be no different, especially when you have multiple schools. Because when they were here at the outdoor meet, they had to deal with the winds and also the mixture of weather, but also not a lot of schools. Now with the WAR 9, I would imagine there's several schools on the line, and so they're going to get tested a lot and see how the junior colleges and community colleges will rack up with the NCAA. Obviously, some of them will have a fair share of success. Some of them may have a hard time, but hey, it's part of the challenge track and field that you're just going to go out there and give it your all.
Yes, and looking at some of the upcoming events for the Vandals track and field team, obviously in the WAR 9, but But then we're looking at the Mount Sac relays, April 14th through 16th in Cerritos, California. Did I pronounce that correct?
Cerritos, California, that is correct.
Okay, and then we have the, looks like there's going to be multiple competitions actually during the same time period. The Cal State Twilight in LA. We have the Byron Clay Invitational at Azusa Pacific. We have the Long Beach Invitational at Long Beach. So all of those are going on at the same time. That's 4 different events, so to say, but all in the Cali area. So
yeah, my question would be when the one with the relay, I would imagine it's exclusively relay. I would wonder whether or not that's an interesting one. Which one will Ben be at? Because he also does relays as well, and also a couple of runners. That would be an interesting strategy.
Yes,
I would imagine since Ben has already qualified, I think they would not. I don't know whether or not they're going to want him to focus on his field that he did well, or focus on the relay, trying to qualify for it as well.
Good question. We don't know yet, and I'm sure we will find out a little bit more next week when the competition takes place throughout the weekend. After that, they travel to Spokane for the Spokane Memorial Open April 23rd before heading down to Boise for the Border Clash April 29th and 30th. So, busy time of the year for the program, but it looks like a few of their athletes are excelling and really making great strides in allowing the program to be competitive and to really progress throughout the years.
Yeah, it is definitely really grown as a team, and this year has been a definite fun experience to cover them throughout the season, whether it's whether here or on the road or even during practices. It's been a very fun season to cover, and I think it'll just get better and better as the season progresses.
True. Quick announcement. We are going to quickly talk about the March Scholar athletes named by the university. First off, men's basketball player Chris Sarbaugh. He is a graduate student. He is this is last year with the program. He's graduating this May, and he is earning a degree in adult organizational learning and leadership candidate. He is the male scholar athlete because of his dedication to academic goals, according to the Go Vandals site. He's a 4.0 graduate student, so he's very dedicated to his time in the classroom as well as on the court, and just all around a spectacular athlete and student, it seems like.
Yeah, it does not surprise me. I think we can both agree when we spoke to him a couple of times. He seems to be wise and kind of very focused on the bigger picture outside of himself, and kind of try to help the other guys out and do whatever he's been asked to do, and that kind of reflects really well on his academics. It does not surprise me. So it's always big news to hear that, especially from a guy that's played in multiple teams in the last 4 to 6 years, and the fact that he was able to spend his one and only season in Idaho and really excel on and off the court, that is a definite daunting task, but he definitely showcased that he can overcome anything and can prove himself that there's no challenge for him. Just give him a challenge and he's willing to excel in flying colors.
Yep. Idaho assistant men's basketball coach Zach Claus said, quote, "He takes his education seriously and is focused to stay on task and work ahead and maintain success in all classes, and he does this while balancing the rigors of team travel." End quote. As a former student athlete myself, I understand how difficult it can be to excel, not only in the classroom but on the field or the court or the diamond as well. It's really tricky to find the time to balance everything, and I really applaud Sarbaugh for his dedication and being able to find the appropriate balance of school and his sport. Also, another March Scholar Athlete of the Month, Jenna Ellis, originally from Pocatello. She's completing her MS in Family and Consumer Sciences. She's maintained a 3.93 GPA, in addition to competing with the rigorous schedule of being a student athlete. Assistant volleyball coach Kara Kiefer said, "Jenna is a leader both on and off the court. Her dedication to volleyball and academics is superior. She works tirelessly to meet the demanding requirements of a master's program while breaking records on the court." End quote. Sounds like a couple of fantastic individuals who represent the university really well, both as amazing students and as incredible athletes.
Most definitely. In the case of Jenna Ellis, when I covered volleyball throughout the season, she's probably one of the more wise and well-crafted, minded women on the court. It seems like trying to get. She's kind of like the piece of the puzzle of the team, essentially. When you have a competitive, rigorous nature of volleyball, where you have to stay on top of things, in most cases she's usually in a lot of ways on top on a lot of things, and that really reflects from the academic field. So yeah, most definitely, and one very wise, very efficient. Like I have not seen from any athlete since I've been here or since I've covered sports on campus.
Right. Well, moving past the March Student Athletes of the Month, we're going to get into football to conclude our program. The Idaho football team will host another scrimmage tomorrow at the KUOI Dome at 10 a.m. I believe that is open to the public as it was in Lewiston, but that is not 100% certain. I know their spring game has been confirmed to be on April 22nd at 6 p.m. I believe that's the silver and gold game. It was first reported by FBSschedules.com back in January 26th, I believe. The University of Idaho Athletics Department has remained fairly quiet on the matter until, I believe it was Tuesday morning. They tweeted out the confirmation of the date and the time. So Vandal fans, definitely check that out. And if you're around Moscow, be sure to check out the scrimmage tomorrow before you check out the TED Talks on campus.
It's going to be another massive collage of major events. You have TED Talk, you have football, and you have the volleyball stuff too, all at the same time. This look like almost all at the same time.
Volleyball will also be hosting, Lewis Clark State College and Spokane Falls Community College tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the Memorial Gym. So if you want to come out and try to see like the volleyball before the football, go, feel free, most definitely. It'll be at the Memorial Gym, 9 a.m. It'll be an interesting game because we get to see here us Vandals to see how the team are in kind of like right here because they traveled in Pullman last week, so we get to see like our good chance how the team is doing, especially the two transfers of Haley Mastis and Clary Hobart. The two transfers, particularly Haley Mastis playing kind of like now taking the role what was Meredith Scobus for a long time, so it'll be an interesting game to cover.
Real quickly, what are you going to be looking for when you cover that game tomorrow? What specifically?
What I'm looking for is kind of like how they manage to control, like how they're going to do as a team, play together and kind of facing the 6-on-6 side, because I mentioned in the article that it's on the Argonaut and also on Vandal Nation that they've been limited on scrimmaging. And because of injuries, and also they don't have the people that graduated. So I'm going to keep an eye on the how they do defensively as when they have everybody on one side of the court rather than just kind of like being limited in practice. Kind of like the true test of how they are, how they stack up with these teams. So I will keep an eye on defense and see can they keep the ball and trying to score points. I think it's mostly a defensive side, see how they manage to reduce errors, because that was one of the common issues they had last year. Is like when the one team gets on a run, and while the Vandals have a tendency to make errors sometimes, they kind of struggle to get back on track. It's kind of like how quickly can they adapt to the challenge and see how they perform. There's a lot of things I'm keeping an eye on.
Right, okay, and that'll be tomorrow morning starting at 9 a.m. in the Memorial Gym. Meanwhile, just across the street in the KUOI Dome, there'll be football. That scrimmage will start at 10 a.m. Obviously, the last scrimmage out in Lewiston, very offensively oriented. Sophomore quarterback Jake Luton threw for 571 yards and 7 touchdowns. Obviously, he saw many more reps than he would have seen during an actual game, but it was really cool to see those numbers from the offensive perspective. One thing I will be keeping an eye on is Denzel Brantley, running back. I believe right now Petrino has him as probably the third string guy behind Isaiah Saunders and Aaron Duckworth. But what I really like about Denzel Brantley is he provides a really key receiving role for the Vandals. His hands I feel like are a little bit better than Duckworth's, and he can run pretty well too. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Brantley really incorporated in offense, especially in like third down passing situations. Duckworth, though, on the ground looks to be probably the most well-developed of the trio. He's able to hit the outside really quickly and use his speed to kind of, I guess, dodge opponents. So that's what I'll be looking for. But also, I'm really interested to see how the defense responds to the offensive pressure this weekend. We almost, I guess, kind of there's a consensus among Vandal fans that our offense is kind of the key to our football team. Last year, 35 points against Auburn, really lining it up on the field. I believe one of their lowest scoring games was probably that Troy game where it was 19-16. That's offense is not a weak spot for us. I feel like our defense is something that needs to develop a little bit more, and I'm really excited to see them tomorrow against Luton. I know they're going to throw again and again and again, and I want to see how the Vandals will respond to that defensively.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of right here how both sides will do it. So the one thing as far as the football is concerned, I'd be curious is just obviously the defensive side, how they will capitalize and adapt to the offensive game that is usually not much of a concern other than right now with the running and receiving as far as consistency and which one is more established. But yeah, most definitely those are the two things that I'll be looking for. And as far as you brought up like specific players, I will mention, if going back to the whole volleyball thing real quick, it's definitely Haley Massis and Devon Ryder. See how those two in particular will do. Those are the two that I'll be definitely keeping an eye on. See, one is kind of like how Massis will do at home, and especially kind of like filling in the role of Meredith Koba, and Devon Ryder, see kind of like how much growth she has done so far, because she was one of the more quiet but more solid performers out there, but when she has the opportunity, but I think this year I see a little bit more playing time from her. So
okay.
That'll be the two things I'll keep an eye on.
Gotcha.
As well.
Well, in the final minutes of our program, we'll just provide you with some quick updates on professional sports kind of in the region. The Mariners will host their season opener, I believe, tonight in Seattle at 7 o'clock. That will be on Root Sports. The opening day for any city is always a big deal, even though it wasn't officially on opening day. Be sure to check that out if you're a baseball fan. Robinson Cano has been on fire as of late, 4 home runs in 3 games. So hopefully the Mariners can carry that throughout the season. Meanwhile, also the Seattle Sounders will play tomorrow, but they will not be at home. They will be traveling. That game will be at around 1 o'clock tomorrow, and that will also be on Root Sports, so check that out if you are a soccer fan. Oh, we completely forgot to talk about soccer, and I apologize for that. Real briefly, we'll touch on it. The Vandal soccer team will travel to Portland for a doubleheader in the City of Roses. They will face Concordia and Seattle University in 2 70-minute games. That usually they play 90, but because it's a doubleheader, they're going to be playing 70. Coach Pittman and I talked earlier this week, and he said he's going to try and divvy up the playing time so that everybody can see the field, but also he's really concerned about kind of fatigue issues as well, so he's going to play it a little bit by ear. But the team had a really good game against Gonzaga last week. They fell 1-0 after allowing an early goal, but after that early goal, it seemed like it was very tense on both sides without any relenting on the defensive side. It'd be really interesting to see how the Vandals do this weekend. Obviously, they returned their entire starting lineup, but just to see some of these key substitutes and who really kind of stands out during the spring as maybe a primary substitute option for the team.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they fare in this double duty game to kind of test them into fatigue level. Obviously, Idaho has a lot of momentum. You mentioned everybody returns. They only had one senior of Reagan Quigley last year. And then this year, I believe they have a stack load of seniors, but also they have a stack load of young players as well coming up, whether in the fall or what they have right now. So they pretty much have the same core lineup at the end of the day, and it's going to be interesting how they do.
Well, that was about all the time we have for our program today. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to 4th and Downtown. We will be back Sunday at 11 from 11 to noon for an hour show. Here is our shameless self-promotion of the week. Follow us on Twitter at Vandal Nation. You will get tweets on the latest news, stories, updates, photographs, anything Vandal athletics related. You will likely find it there. We also have an Instagram, The Vandal Nation. See what our photographers have been shooting over the weeks and some of the best shots from their assignments. Also, we now have a Snapchat, which is fantastic. Follow us, The Vandal Nation. You can see exclusive clips from games, from practices, in a unique perspective. So definitely check that out. Also, we're always on Facebook. Seems to be our most popular way of communicating with our audience. Definitely go check that out. Just Vandal Nation. And then, as always, just pick up the latest edition of the ARG around campus or your Moscow community. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. Luis, any final words?
Especially with the whole Snapchat thing, it's going to be, I would imagine, multiple events tomorrow, so you don't want to miss that. But enjoy the sun. It's right now, looking at it at a 2-mile-an-hour wind, it's like 78 degrees. I don't know how, and the month of April is almost 80. But then again, it's a beautiful sunshiny day. Stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy some Vandal sports, even sports around the world for that matter.
Sounds good. And I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, who's coming early for an early Mom's Weekend. Hi, Mom. Hope you enjoy our campus and have fun in Moscow this weekend. So thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back Sunday, and we hope to see you there. Until next time, Vandal fans.